right, this is number 4 from the 2013 exam. I'll read through it. I'll tell you where the points are, and then I will answer it for you. And so it says matter continuously cycles through an ecosystem. A simplified carbon cycle is depicted below. And so then we have CO2 going through some sort of process that then gives us organic molecules. And then we have those organic molecules, and it goes through a different process and then lets off CO2. And it says for letter A, identify the key metabolic process for step 1 and the key metabolic process for step 2. Briefly explain how each process promotes movement of carbon through the cycle. For each process, explain. Your explanation should focus on the role of energy in the movement of carbon. And then it says, for letter B, identify an organism that carries out both processes. And so we have a point here. Let me get the right thing. We have a point here, identify a key process. And then we have briefly explain, which will be for one of the, one for the process number 1 and one for the process number 2. So that's 2 points. And then identify an organism. So the identify is 1 point. The briefly explain is 2 points because you're going to do it for process 1 and process 2. And then identify is the 4th point. And so then we will answer those. And so, oops. Alrighty. So for letter A, the first process is when we take carbon dioxide and we turn it into organic molecules. So it would be a process that would bring in carbon dioxide and let out something that is carbon-based as a molecule. And so that would be photosynthesis. And then the second one is when we take that glucose or those organic molecules and break them down and give off carbon dioxide. There are 2 possible ones. The big one is cellular respiration. You could also say, because if you're getting real specific, you could say the citric acid cycle, because that is technically where we're breaking down the pyruvate and giving off the carbon dioxide in that one. And so then it says, briefly explain how each of the processes promotes the movement of carbon, and then focus on the role of energy in the movement of carbon through the process. And so this one would be, we could say, in this process, CO2 comes in to the system from the atmosphere. The light energy, let me make this a little bit bigger. The light energy from the sun breaks the bonds. Oops, not yet. Sun is captured. Bonds of ATP. Then the bonds of ATP are broken and the energy is transferred into the carbon compounds. And we'll just put a little detail there for glucose. And then the carbon leaves the system as glucose. And so then we're going to do the same thing down here. And so then in this process, carbon enters the system in glucose, is broken down, then ATP is released, and the carbon leaves the system during the citric acid cycle. ATP is also formed during the electron transport chain. And then just put a little extra vocabulary in there for chemiosmotic phosphorylation. So A was identify the processes. Yes, we did that. And then briefly explain for each one of those processes. And we did that. And so then we have B. And it says identify an organism that carries out both processes. So this will be anything that does both photosynthesis and cellular respiration. So it's going to be plants. It is some bacteria, some protists, some fungi. The only thing that it really couldn't be is like animals because we don't do photosynthesis. And